Hey guys, MrPokke here. Sorry, no face cam today because I am absolutely so cooked with this early access. Just finished up the script for all of the 4.2 Nova fillers, and I want to just make this quick little video showcasing you guys the couple of 0 cycle clears I have for Silver 9 at their respective idle investments, going from the lowest cost all the way towards the highest cost. So for the teams that we're going to be using, it is pretty much going to be the exact same, and that's going to be Silver 9 into Sparxie, Guang, as well as Elation Trailblazer. There are definitely other ways that you can also do a couple of sustainless runs. Mainly, you could opt to either switch out Sparxie for a Sparkle, or any of the other supports that you have like high investments in, for example like E1 Tribi or even maybe like E2 Silver Wolf. But for the showcase that we're going to be doing today, it is just going to be purely on the Quadra Elation, just to show you guys what this is going to be looking at, right? So for our builds over here, I'm just going to be showcasing right now. This is pretty much going to be the exact same build for the entire team. So at the start, it is going to be starting at full E0. We eventually worked our way up to the E2 Silver Wolf for the last two showcase, but for the first two, is pretty much just going to be running our E0 over here. Doing a 80% crit rate into 150% crit damage, 200 speed is going to be obtained over Silver Wolf over here. This was actually pretty important, I would say, because you really want to try to squeeze in the additional turn, especially on the next wave for wave 2, right? And then for Sparxie, it's just going to be 130 with 92 crit rate and 198 crit damage, which is, I would say, pretty absurd of a red subset. Not as insane as I would say. There are probably way better Sparxies out there, especially if you have like a crit damage main. So that's going to be that. And then this is going to be Guang, which is 200 speed on the dot, 80% crit rate, and 69.4 crit damage. This crit damage honestly doesn't really matter. I ideally want to hit as close to 200 speed as possible with the 80% crit rate. I did opt for a 2-piece Vomit over here just for Guang because I want her to apply all of her skills as soon as possible for wave 1. And then by wave 2, I still want to hit at 200 speed so that I can still squeeze in the third action. So that's going to pretty much be it. And then for our EMC build, this build, I believe I kind of changed it a little bit because I gave bro the best in slot equal 4-piece, but I basically just tried to hit the effective 200 speed in battle with the free Herta Light Cone, and that's going to be at E6 S5, right? So without further ado, let's just jump into our very first showcase, and that is going to be with Nikado Avocado. Okay, so this is going to be the run featuring our E1 Silver 9 with all of our techniques, and then we are just going to immediately jump in. Once again, this is gonna be a RNG where you definitely want to grind for the strong reverberation so that you do not get the enemies hitting you too much, right? So this is gonna cast our skill following Guang's ultimate, and because of this, like I mentioned, the MOC buff, we are definitely gonna be able to get enough punchlines to generate enough ultimate for our Silver 9 over here, so we do not need to wait for EMC's ultimate, right? So this is going to be giving us 65, which is going to be very good because of the MOC. Gets one more skill going in, Silver 9 activates the ultimate, and then we are pretty much just going to go for it right here, dealing as much damage as humanly possible, right? And then our Aha Instance is going to come back down with a 65 punchline, pretty much guaranteeing our Silver Wolf to get 120 right off the go, which unlocks our SSS rating. Alright, so this is going to be very good. Gets all the damage. Roar goes back down. Alright, extremely nice. Okay, for this particular moment, you do not want Sparxie to add the ultimate because it is going to be overkill. Now, one thing is, you can see this is extremely important. You want to make sure that your Guang, she is going to be faster than Silver Wolf. Alright, if she is too slow, then she cannot apply one more basic attack, which means that she will lose 30 energy. Because by the time Silver Wolf approaches this next action, everything is gonna die here. Right, there is no way to prevent this from happening. Silver Wolf just deals way too much damage. So you have to try to make sure that this Guang is gonna be a little bit faster so that you can get that energy. I don't think it's gonna be possible for you to push out your EMC faster than this because we are gonna be running EMC on 4-piece Eagle. But if you want to give EMC 2+2 speed, and you just make her naturally faster than Silver Wolf without 4-piece Eagle, then you can also squeeze out a little bit more energy or skill points just for EMC. But I find this to be pretty much redundant. So we are just gonna let go of our Sparxie's EBA. Once again, I want to try to save up a little bit more of my skill points, which is why you can see I only let go of a single Sparxie's EBA for punchline generation, so I can keep my trail, because remember, by Silver Wolf's next EBA, all of this is gonna be expiring. because she cannot really keep full stacks of this even with the E1. So you want to kind of save up a little bit of skill points so you can funnel everything towards Silver 9's next ultimate rotation. And we are just going to be saving out our Sparxie ultimate as well, because you can see over here my Guang is going to basic, and then Silver Wolf is definitely going to be able to kill right here, right? So we're just going to go in, get us a little bit more of energy from Guang. And then Silver Wolf is just going to be able to essentially let everything rip, because as I mentioned in Silver Wolf's guide, you can actually transfer the attack cross waves, so there's not going to be any wastage whatsoever. 1.16 minutes is going to be very, very good, and from this point on, we can just let go of all of our damage, right? Our Aha instance, Sparxie ultimate, right? Gets off our vulnerability debuff. Gets a little bit of energy for Sparxie as well, which is going to be very nice at 400k. And then Silver Wolf is going to come back down with 1.8 million, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then from here, we're just going to go for another absolutely massive burst of damage for a whopping 2.3 million at E1 Silver Wolf. And then EMC is just finally going to cut our ultimate. So from here, you can see the moment I activate my EMC's ultimate, first of all, I activate my 4-piece ego, and second of all, Silver Wolf is just going to pretty much instantly get enough ultimate to cast ultimate again, right? So we pretty much do not have any ultimate downtime. And because we have the additional refund from the E1, this was pretty much going to be allowing us to make this happen. So Silver Wolf immediately jumps back down with SS rating, so that's 15% additional multiplier for the final hit, down to 17%. Guang has to refresh this, so it is what it is. We're going to take a little bit of damage, but by my next Silver Wolf rotation, we are definitely going to be able to get a clear, right? So for this particular moment here, I would say I would have just chosen Sparxie to aim the pillars that had Sparxie herself, so that we could actually break the pillars a little bit faster. Because I did not do that, I actually wasted quite a decent chunk of damage, but I was thinking, you know what, we really deal way too much damage here anyways, so it's not going to be that big of a deal, right? So at this point, we are just going to boom, slams in all of our damage. And you can see over here, it is a little bit unfortunate that because Silver Wolf's damage is so split, and that is basically Silver Wolf's greatest weakness. If you're up against multi-target content, especially for Negador, which summons 4 spears, the damage will always be evenly distributed. Alright, so it is gonna be a little bit annoying for Silver Wolf against these kind of targets, but it is not gonna be that bad, because by our next Aha instance from Guang, we are definitely gonna be able to get the kill right here the moment one of this spear breaks. Alright, so EMC comes back down for the additional bounce. Sparxie goes for the bounce, everyone bouncing. Okay, this is where it's like really unfortunate, because I basically have to waste a massive chunk of, how much is that? 2.5 million damage on a 1% HP. So a huge DPS loss, which is why I say even at E0, I would say this is definitely going to be viable as long as you get the speed tuning and the targeting correct, right? So that is pretty much going to be that for our first portion. Luckily, now my team died, which is also why for number 1 in the very first wave, you do not want to take any damage from the first enemies, because if you do, there is pretty much no way your EMC is going to survive this unless you have a global passive, right? So from this point, he will take off our units, which is going to be perfect for EMC, because her ability is going to be targeting all targets. Get us more punch lines for Silver 9, as well as activating our elation skill for more Dragon Bombas, so that we can dispel the pillars as fast as possible, right? And then our elation instance is going to proc. Alright, gets us a little bit more vulnerability, gets us a splash damage, gets us more bounce, gets us more roars. Very good, 6.5 million, but that is because we did break 3 of the other spears. It's not going to be from raw damage. The Sparxie is finally going to just be able to slam everything into Negador right here, and then we are going to very easily get us this 0 cycle. One last little bomb over here, gets all of the little TLBs progging, which honestly is just super overkill, and then Silver 9 is just going to slam back down for the additional hits, getting us that 0 cycle, right? So this is like giga overkill, getting us that for Negador, right? I do kind of want to show you guys this quick little showcase. It's not exactly a successful run. I would say it was actually going to be a 1 cycle. So this was the run that I was able to obtain with a I would say a E0, right? So this entire team over here is actually going to be E0. So the key difference for this particular E0 team, as you guys can see right here, I'm just going to show you guys all the way towards the end, is that we missed out that little bit of damage right here. And the reason why this is because my Silver Wolf wasn't able to get her ultimate fast enough, which would have pushed me towards this one additional action. You can remember just now for my 0 cycle, it was my Sparxie speed did not change, right? She was the exact same speed. So after this Sparxie speed, I still had one additional Silver 9 ultimate, or rather the EBA, to allow me to get a kill, right? So the reason for that is because of the E1 giving us the additional punchline refund, which happened somewhere over here. So you can see that, I would say somewhere along here, right? So I have a shit ton of punchlines over here, but because the main thing that didn't happen was I did not save up my EMC's ultimate to give this to Silver Wolf at this particular juncture instead. So because I could not instantly cast my Silver Wolf ultimate, I was essentially unable to get this back up as fast as possible, which is what led to the action value loss, which is why we couldn't get our very last action, right? So just something to consider, but pretty much I don't think it's gonna be that bad. As long as you get a speed tuning down, I believe that E0 Silver is definitely going to be 100% viable, right? So now let's just move on into the second phase, and that is going to be Kafka. So for this showcase, it is actually going to be done with a full E0 team. So E0 Silver 9, E0 Guang, as well as the E0 Sparxie with the Elation Trailblazer on the exact same build. I would say that this side is definitely going to be easier because, I mean, obviously we have Imaginary Weakness, so you're going to be on element. And the rest of the stuff, Kafka herself is actually a pretty manageable boss. Mainly just because, number one, she only has a single phase, not like Negador, and number two, because of our global passive, that is the part where we actually were to completely bypass the mind control mechanic, which allowed me to basically don't really care if we were gonna be losing any forms of action, right? We basically took Kafka's mind control as an extra turn, which is what made this 0 cycle very, very manageable with Silver 9 over here. So with that being established for our very first wave, it is honestly not as much RNG as the first wave because you didn't really have to grind for the purple RNG from the TV. We are just going to be dealing as much damage as possible. For this particular point, we do get ourselves the hard instance, and you do not need to activate your EMC's ultimate, because you're definitely going to be dealing enough damage to basically get on to the next wave. So you can kind of just save this for the next rotation just to get a little bit more. You can see over here, my team looks to be extremely low. But by the time my Silver Wolf casts her next EBA, we are pretty much going to be able to full clear this, right? So once my Sparxie goes in, we are also going to get a TLB. So TLB gives me back all my skill points, gets the additional damage. Guang gets a little bit more energy regeneration, and then Silver 9 is just going to be able to easily clear this, and then we are just going to say hi to Kafka. A little bit of an excess carry forward to the next wave, which is always going to be quite nice. And you can see how from this point, I essentially basically almost took a no damage in this particular portion over here. I would say for this play, I was really greedy. I would have just, or rather I should have just saved my EMC's ultimate after Silver 9's ultimate ended over here, right? Because this is gonna be Silver 9's final EBA, her third EBA. So if I actually saved it, I would have been able to get back to my ultimate immediately, but I was just going to be greeding for the highest possible amount of crit value because more punchlines or rather more hidden NMR will give you a direct crit damage conversion, right? So I was just 100% greedy here. You could have played this way safer, but I didn't want to waste the additional energy because I did have my 4-piece Eagle as well as a Nation skill. So you can see once my Silver 9 is going to pop in, and then we're going to do one whopping 240 hidden NMR burst for a absolutely insane 3.4 million damage. This was done with a full E0 team. Everybody here was going to be E0, but it was really greedy because you see, I do have this damage downtime. If I had saved my Elation Trailblazer's ultimate, I most likely could have just gotten my ultimate right back up immediately, which would have made this run like a little bit less scary. From this point, it kind of is what it is. We're going to pop out skill, and then EMC is just going to be able to pop the skill over here. Okay, and then the only time we get hit is going to be this time, right? So we are going to be proccing our global passive, and yes, global passive in this game does stack, which is honestly very interesting. Unfortunately, we did not get a mind control on Silver 9, which would have been technically a little bit better, or at least a Guang or Sparxie. EMC was actually the worst candidate to get a global passive, or rather the action value advance, but it is what it is. We're just going to play with it. And then for this particular part, you have to grind the RNG for the two horses. So if the horses hit Trailblazer or Silver 9, the run is pretty much over. So we basically had to grind for the right hits, right? So Sparxie is just gonna be able to slam on all of the skill points. Bada boom, bada bing. Gets the ultimate. I was hoping that the bounce actually breaks one of the forces, but it is what it is. first hit on Sparxie, very good. The second action is always going to be a charge, which is fine. And the second is going to be on Guang, which is going to be fine as well. Then from this point, they are pretty much not going to be able to get hit because we are definitely going to be able to clear this right here. So Guang pops open an ultimate, gets all of our elation skill. So this is going to fly in. So the very first elation skill, it will proc my Silver 9's ultimate. So from this point, I'm going to be able to get an extra turn. Gets the action value advanced. And then we are going to be able to enter this mode, which means that my next aha in the following turn, or rather the 83 punchline aha, we are going to basically slam all in for bounce damage for maximum value, right? So this bada boom bada bing, 928k, and then our next aha is at 87 punchlines, slams back down 300k, and unfortunately my EMC is going to be able to die here. But before my EMC goes away, I will pretty much just get this clear, right? So even if I did not get this clear, EMC's ultimate would have then given me my additional elation skill, so Silver 9 would have just gotten the clear anyways, but by EMC's turn, we would have died, right? So luckily, we just did like way more enough damage than needed, so that will be getting us the Kafka 0 cycle. And technically speaking, the theoretical HP for this boss was lower, but it does hit very hard, especially for Kafka as well as the horses. And the first bit, if you are going to be getting hit, then it kind of is what it is, right? So that's going to be our second 0 cycle. And now we are going to be moving on to the power of E2 Silver Wolf. Alright, so full transparency for the next 2 0 cycles, I would say that if you are going to be trying to run them sustainless, I highly recommend you get at least a couple of idle investments on either Silver Wolf or at least Sparxie, because without idle investments, I would say that this sustainless team is pretty much almost impossible, because I mentioned in my earlier access guide as well, Silver Wolf's sustain capability or elation team's sustainless capability is going to be very low, unlike break, because they don't really have any other ways to delay the enemy or prevent them from attacking you. So you have to kind of just deal as much damage as possible without them dealing too much damage to your team, right? And on top of that, the next MOC rotation, which is going to be the one pretty much for even Nisia, that is going to be the one giving you ultimate damage. So Silver Wolf is pretty much going to gain like almost 0 benefits, except for a little bit, because Silver Wolf does not really give a shit about ultimate damage whatsoever, right? So we are just gonna be able to completely brute force this first half, and I would say Calamity Sam is gonna be pretty scary because it is gonna be off element and he does deal quite a substantial amount of damage, right? But you can see over here, E2 Silver 9 is absolutely gonna be able to pop off, and you will be able to see Bro's utility very soon, right? So we always open on with our Guang ultimate, no questions asked, applies our debuffs, applies our elation skill. And then EMC is just going to be able to get that over there. Very nice. Also, if you're watching at this point of the video, hi. Type buh. Anyways, you can see over here, we did not get the punchlines needed, but just barely for the 63, because we do not have the punchline buff from the current MOC anymore, right? The current, as in the time of this recording, MOC just refreshed this week on Monday, so the current MOC gives us punchlines, but this one does not, right? So our punchline is going to be a little bit more tight. So if you do not have the idolence for this, you will actually not get yourself Silver Wolf's ultimate immediately, right? So the item over here was like really important, especially for E2. So now you can actually see that our damage will start to ramp up substantially, but we are gonna be able to take a little bit of hit over here. It is gonna be unavoidable. Alright, gets us this EMC ultimate, which will then give me more punchlines as well as the Dragon Roar over here, right? And then the way that E2 Silver 9 works is that the moment you get 120 and 240 hit and MR respectively, you are able to gain an extra EVA, which is what makes this item completely game-changing, right? So for the first portions, you're not going to see any effects, at least until Sparxie gets the damage in. The damage is starting to ramp up very nice, and you can see here, the moment we hit 121 hit an MMR, my Silver Wolf immediately gets an extra turn, right? So that's basically how this item works, which is absolutely badongadongs. And you can see the damage multiplier is just going absolutely crazy. So you're pretty much just getting a 2 million damage completely for free, right? This is a free. You didn't even need any other type of trigger conditions. The moment you get an elation skill, or rather the punchlines, you are just going to be able to get it. You can get this one more time later at 240, which is also why I say Sparxie's role combined with E2 Silver Wolf makes her very valuable. If you do not have the E2 Silver Wolf, Sparxie's punchline generation is actually not going to be too noticeable, right? So at this point, we pretty much just clear out the entire wave on our very first try, completely overkilling. We didn't even need to do anything. We just destroyed the whole wave. So we didn't even have enough time to save up our energy, but you can just see just truly how much damage we are going to be able to do over here. And then we're just going to immediately slams back down, bada boom, bada bang, goes in for Nightmare Send for another 1.8 million. And then we are going to be just expiring over here, which is going to be fine, right? So we are going to be getting the extra turn, which is going to be very, very good. Silver Wolf is just going to be able to pop a skill. Alright, and EMC is just going to be able to pop a skill. And then from our Aha instance at 27, we are just pretty much going to be getting ourselves the punchlines required so that we can then activate our ultimate once again. Alright, so Silver Wolf pops this, 75, hidden MMR, pops the ultimate, gets us back in, and then we are just going to be able to once again deal tons of damage, right? So for this particular portion, because we do hit 62 over here, we do gain a 1 stack of 15% multiplier, 2.1 million Sparxie. For this particular moment, it is kind of up to you whether you want to aim the Calamity boss in the middle target or you want to aim the boss, the bugs at the side. It doesn't really matter because it's 3 target bounce, right? So it's always going to bounce between 3 targets, so you don't really change the targeting whatsoever, right? Then Sparxie is just going to be able to slam all of our skill points, which is, keep squishing your cheeks for a good amount of damage, as well as TLB procs, which is very, very nice. In fact, the TLB literally did more damage than Sparxie's EBA, which truly shows the sub-DPS capabilities right here, especially because, we do not crit, right? And yes, we do have to proc this global passive on EMC, unfortunately. If you want to mitigate this RNG, especially if you do not have a global passive, just give EMC a HP main step. Alright, this will make it a lot tankier, and frankly speaking, you're really just not losing too much, if at all, because majority of damage is still going to be coming from Silver 9 anyways, right? So now at this point, the bugs are going to be able to hit us a little bit, which is going to be fine. Not quite enough for Guang ultimate, which, kind of it is what it is. EMC comes back down. We are almost going to be there for our out by just barely enough. So we're just going to slam everything. And then once we hit 120 here, we are pretty much going to be able to get ourselves an extra turn. All the bugs are going to die. And then this 70 punchline Aha instance is going to come in for absolutely massive damage, which would give me the required energy for my EMC ultimate as well. So once we pop this, we can then get our free EMC ultimate, and then this will then give me the additional punchlines, which then once again gives me my additional damage, right? So you can see this slams back down 152, so that is gonna be another massive EBA, which is once again complete overkill right here. Bada boom, bada bang, and then this just slams down. We don't even need the additional relation skill, and then okay, you know what, we do, because 1% is gonna be 1%, and that is gonna be just our Silver 9 completely brute forcing Calamity Boss Sam running our E2 Silver 9 build over there, right? So now we're just gonna be jumping into our last zero cycle, and that is going to be the Calamity Boss Pom-Pom, right? So for this particular zero cycle is actually pretty straightforward, because the boss itself is already showed towards elation, especially with the whole damage reduction mechanic. But I would say this boss is also really hard to do with sustainers, because in wave 1 you can see the enemies that you are going to be facing, they deal a ridiculous amount of damage if you cannot clear them fast enough, specifically Joy Ascendant, right? So I'm talking about the brand new Ascendant one right here, which is basically the same model you will see from the Decaying Shadows. So what bro does, she will split into 2 different elites if you kill her for the first time, and then those 2 elites split to another 2 elites. So you have to kill this thing literally like 1 time, then 2 times, so that's 3 times, and then another 4 times, so that's a combined total of 7 different times. So it is almost impossible to dodge the damage coming from this Joy Ascendant, and she does deal quite a decent chunk, right? So without the additional items to proc our Silver 9's ultimate immediately to deal as much damage as possible, our sustainers run on this half at E0 it is gonna be very difficult to achieve, at least with this setup that we have right here. So everything else is just gonna be the exact same. We are gonna be able to get ourselves the additional elation skill, and then this will pop open our Silver 9 ultimate. And then this is just gonna boom, right? Just do as much damage as possible. Very nice. And then this will immediately get us down over here. You can see my Sparxie is gonna be already at 2 HP, which is gonna be really scary. So from our very first elation skill proc, or rather the Aha instance from Guang, we can actually deal a substantial amount of damage to the point where we split our first Joy Ascendant. So we already killed 1. Now we need to kill 2 of those things again. And then after we kill 2 of those things, we need to kill them again, right? But the very first thing is we really want to break the horse and don't take any damage from the horse, because the horse hit is going to be around like 30% of my max HP, right? So ideally, you can see over here, we did in fact break the horse from the TLB, so we are definitely going to be guaranteed to kill the horse as well as the next 2 Joy Ascendant. just purely from the amount of damage you're dealing, so that we can save all of our other ultimates towards the next wave, right? So EBA from 0 is going to come in, we save everything, right? We save our EMC, we save our Sparxie, because my next Silver Wolf is going to be our last EBA, and then we can just start everything all over again by going into the next wave, right? So this brings forward into Pom-Pom. We do have the action value carried forward from the wave transfer, and then Sparxie is just going to be able to pop this just a little bit of damage before Pom-Pom summons the goons, right? Because we are going to be getting the damage mitigation, so we just want to do as much damage as possible, and then we'll make use of Silver 9 to dispel the goons, right? We'll make use of Silver 9 to dispel the goons, so I'm just kind of pondering over here a little bit. Gets in the booms. Alright, he's going to come in for the snip, and then he summons the goons. So from this point onwards, that is when I will give the buffs to Silver 9. Just generating as much elation skill as possible, deal as much damage as possible towards the little guys over there, and then we're just gonna be spamming this. Pops a TLB, and then this thing is gonna hit us for a little bit. We can see our health is gonna be extremely low. So for this aha instance, we're pretty much gonna be guaranteeing the kill over here for the very first 2 hits, right? So one very important thing you can see over here, right? This is extremely important. You do not want your Silver Wolf to expire her 3 EBAs before 240 hidden MMR. This is extremely important. That is also the reason why I made my EMC cast their ultimate instead of waiting for Silver Wolf's turn to expire. Because if I were to wait for Silver Wolf to expire, that means I would not have utilized E2 Silver Wolf to the maximum potential, because she will gain another additional EBA at 240 hidden MMR, right? So you really want to hit this 240, otherwise this E2 Silver Wolf is pretty much going to be only like half the value, right? So that is pretty much why the reason we did that. So we're going to be minusing 1 stack, and then we're going to be getting our free EBA coming in. And then our next EBA is pretty much going to be guaranteed to get the kill, right? So this goes in for a massive 3.1 million. And then this is going to be our final EBA. Breaks us the face over here. And then we're just going to finish up all of our damage, right? So boom. Very nice. And at this point, Silver is going to be expiring. So we are already back down to 49 and then to 51. And then we get a little bit of Pom-Pom to -1 stack. Gets a little bit more punch because that's how Pom-Pom works. And once again, we do in fact actually proc global passive on both Guang as well as Sparxie. So I would say that even for this boss, the HP requirement is going to be very high, right? So I'm honestly wouldn't even mind if you guys want to go for like HP main stats just for this boss, because they really do a substantial amount of damage. So it kind of is what it is. And then Guang is just going to be going for the basic and generating us a little bit more punch lines. Alright, and then we are going to be able to get ourselves the elation skill. Gets us as much punch line generation as possible, because the moment we generate this punch lines, our next stack at Pom-Pom, you can see, is going to be 20 stacks. It will come up and it will give me the additional break. So only after we break Pom-Pom, then we activate our Silver 9 ultimate, and that is where we can start dealing the remainder of our damage, right? And at this point, the run is pretty much going to be free, because our Silver 9 is just going to deal such an obscene amount of damage. You can see over here, absolutely ridiculous. 2.3 million, 1 final hit, and then I thought I was gonna get a kill, which is what I used for the intro of my Silver 9 guy, but I couldn't quite get a kill, so holy HP inflation. But in any case, Sparxie is just gonna be able to slam as many of these punch lines as possible, and at 120 punch lines, our Silver 9 will then get another extra turn. So stack, 120 SSS gets the extra turn from the top left hand corner, and then this will pretty much get a kill, which is already gonna be overkill, right? So I would say for this zero cycle, it is not so much to do with the damage output, because you definitely have enough damage. It is just more so to do with the sustain, because you really needed to take a lot of damage, specifically from Pom-Pom's 2 different phase changes, right? So with that, we have pretty much come into the end of our Silver 9 Zero Cycle Showcase, and it is pretty much just this exact same team that I used throughout all of the Zero Cycles. There are, once again, like I mentioned, different ways you could try out the Zero Cycles. For example, by changing out Guang or Sparxie for one of your supports. I would say that especially at E2 Silver 9, This is just such a good synergy with Sparxie when it comes to the punchline generation. You're probably not going to be taking her away. And same thing for EMC, because EMC also gives us a considerable amount of punchline. In fact, if you can, I do believe that in terms of a sustainers clear, this is pretty much going to be one of, if not the best teams you have available. You could consider maybe swapping either one of these out for a Sparkle, just because Sparkle does give us the additional action value as well as the crit damage, right? But if you were to use Sparkle, there is a very good chance you might not even get the full 240 hidden MMR to abuse the E2, right? So just take that into consideration going forward in the future, right? So we've come to the end of today's content. I'm absolutely overgrateful. It's currently almost 6 a.m. now. In fact, 6:17 a.m. If I want to show my face, hold up. Oh my god, bro. So, world of the day is pretty much gonna be overworking, and see you guys on Wednesday. It is already Wednesday. Join Twitch, join Discord, use code POKE for 10% off gamers out. All the best, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.